Yeah, I can see him.
He's sitting in the cheap seats. He didn't want to pay the
You
premium
didn't pay
price.
the premium.
Oh.
Okay.
Can't afford
For
'em.
the rockers, you pay extra in case you get the broken one.
Right.
You guys are right.
Awesome. Welcome to the July 7th
Thought it was a pretty quiet.
Select Board meeting.
Oh, the beginning.
If you'd all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yay.
The Groveland Select Board will be holding a public hearing regarding the application submitted by C&A Pre-Owned Auto Sales Incorporated for a Class II auto dealer license to operate a used car dealership at 737 Salem Street, Groveland, Mass., in accordance with MGL C 140. Members of the public are encouraged to attend and provide comments. I don't know that anybody showed up or is on Zoom, but I'll take a motion to open the hearing.
Make a motion to open a hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 140, to hear the application submitted by CNA Pre-Owned Auto Sales, Inc. for a Class II auto dealer license.
Have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
What? Oh, to open it, yeah.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
I'm behind you. I'm slipped up a little. It's
No
vacation.
worries. We
Summer
all do
vacation.
occasionally.
What? I missed that boat.
So does anybody have any questions? What they're trying to do? Go ahead.
So I have a concern. This is the same auto dealership that we reviewed a year or two ago? Was it 2 years ago or 1 year ago? 1 year ago. And they had submitted a new plan for parking of vehicles, and it allowed for a lot more vehicles to be on the lot than previously. And this business is on either side of residential homes. So, you know, it's a concern to make sure that it's able to operate, but it's also not impacting the neighborhood in a negative way. And then after that, we had approved that, the building inspector did weigh in on the plan, and he thought it was, I can't remember his exact words, but basically that was a lot of cars for that size lot, was my impression. Am I off base on this? Am I kind of in the right? He had concerns, right?
Correct.
Okay, good. I didn't have time to look up his concerns, but I could. And then after that business began to operate, and they did clean up a lot and it looked better, but then another sign went up on the building, and I had residents asking me, well, what's going on? There's one sign there, one sign there. We approved the business license for the first one, and the second sign, we didn't have any idea what that was or how that was being used. But we said, okay, we'll give it a year and see how it goes. And now, if I'm understanding this correctly, and again, I find the documents incredibly confusing as to what exactly is going to be operating there and where. And that's why I'm not saying I would not approve it, but I would like complete clarification on exactly, there seems to be two businesses. One is the lessor, that's the one that leases to somebody, right, the lessor? That's the people applying for the license, if I understand that correctly. And then there's another business that is going to lease part, all, or some of this business. And their indication of what they're going to do on the premises is, I think the words were, anything within the law. And I find this really confusing. I'm not accustomed to seeing business licenses where one entity applies, with an owner and another owner, and one person signed somewhere, and I don't know which one of them signed on this line. There was just numerous places throughout this that, on the page of business history, there are two owners, and there's a signature there. I don't know which owner signed because there's no printed name under it. And I'm just not sure if this is the norm. I mean, there's a lot of documents here. There's certainly insurance documents, liability documents. They're incorporated, something about the number of shares. One of the owners lives out of state, I think, or no, maybe both live in state. It's confusing on that. And the person that's leasing, it becomes even more confusing. Like, one description says that a brief description of the business that you intend to engage, used auto and truck sales, leasing and services associated therewith. In another description, they said they're going to sell 20 cars a month. And then down when you get to the leasing pages, that's where it gets more confusing. Because I'm not sure what's being leased. Is the entire business being leased? Is it being leased according to these documents and promises made in this document? Or not? They provided an EIN number, and I couldn't find it when I put it in the system for a search. I don't do this kind of work normally, so I don't know why I couldn't find it. I'm just saying I couldn't find it. They certainly have a lot of documents of insurance and all of that, but then when it comes to the commercial lease, the term of the lease is March 1, 2024 to February 1, 2029. I mean, I'm sorry, this is not clear at all as to what's being done here. And I'm not sure what we're supposed to ask for to get that kind of clarification, to make sure that if a resident comes to us and says, well, this is happening there and they're disrupting my home because there are houses on either side, we could say, oh, no, they're allowed to do that, or, yep, that's within their permit. I don't know. The leasee hereby leases the following described premises, a portion of the premises. That's it. That's all that was said, a portion, and marked Exhibit A. And again, this kind of documentation is not something that I'm an expert at all. There's more initials and scribbled signatures, and I don't know whose they are because there's no printed names to let us know who's agreeing to what. The leasee seems to be the person that's going to be responsible for the trash, keeping up with the property, fire, sprinklers, all that, and the premises shall be used for any lawful use that does not conflict with any other exclusive or prohibited use within the building. I don't know. I think that we need to have the building inspector take another look at the premises and the parking plan again, get back to us again with his concerns so we have that information. And I don't know how we're supposed to understand what we're doing here. Who are we giving the license to, and for how long? There's different dates, there's different signatures.
I had a comment, too.
Go ahead.
It's very similar to what you were
Okay.
saying. So I know it was Quick Service Auto Center, and then the sign changed to Newcraft Collision, but in the paperwork, it has CNA Pre-Owned Auto Sales. If you look at the lease on page 27, it says the lessee is 7 and 3 Enterprise. So I'm with you. I don't want to say no to a business. I don't want to make it difficult, but it maybe just some clarity to understand what we're approving and for who, to understand the liability part of it.
Yeah.
Now, if you could help me understand why they put this application forward since they already had a license,
It's the change in owner.
change in owner that's forcing us. So it's my understanding that they operated a collision repair shop, and that's who they're leasing to. And the people that own the building are running the used car lot. In terms of how much of the premise and where they plan on keeping the cars that are separate from the auto sales, originally we had discussed those cars being kept towards the back of the building. I know because that's something that added specified so they were not visible. So while I do agree that we should have some clarification and have it spelled out a little bit better, I know that I don't see anything specific that changes what they're doing as of date.
Jason?
Yes, Kathy?
When, I think if you go back to when we approved the license, or this whole thing, and our agreement for the extra amount of cars, that was specifically, they said they were not going to be in the towing business. There was no speaking of any collision or any collision center being there. It was totally going to be used car sales. And that's why they wanted the additional spots, to be able to hold cars. And when they were moving cars from one place to another, some might be in the back. But, so my feeling is that we should review again the added parking and kind of determine how much business is for collision and how much is needed for sale of cars. Because this says nothing about selling cars. It speaks mainly about leasing and leasing out. And the signatures and dates are just all over the place. So I think, honestly, we have to set a standard. We want businesses to be in our town, but we want them to be documented. We want them to have signatures with names that are associated with those signatures, so we know who's signing it. And so we know that, if there is a problem, who do we contact?
Yes, no, I agree with that. But what I do disagree with is the reason why they added cars. Because what they said and what we had clarified, and I know that 3 of the board's members at the time, Mark Parento was still on the board, had agreed on was that they said they wanted more cars to help reduce the amount of repair work that they needed to do to stay in business. They didn't say they were eliminating it.
They just said they were getting away from the towing, and I can go back and pull out the transcript. It was pretty specific, and we went along with the extra spots over the letter that the building inspector gave us because we wanted to give them a fair run at it, If they needed to have cars and show cars, we understand they need space for that. Now they have it sounds like two different businesses trying to occupy the same space.
Right, just-
I'd like to
what
know-
they've been doing. I mean, when a business sublets something out, I'm not sure that that's something that's against our bylaws or infringes on anything that we have here.
We didn't interrupt their license, but now, Jason, we have a fresh start here. This is a new business coming in, and if this had been what they originally presented, I would have had the same questions.
Oh, I agree. It needs to be much more
Who's
clear.
using what space?
I agree. It needs to be clearer.
And I don't know that they need all those spaces if this is what they're doing, because if they're dividing that up into repairs and towing cars and then selling some cars, I question whether they'll sell 20 cars a month on that kind of a business. It doesn't make sense. It's flipping over really fast, and it doesn't make sense. I mean, why would the other owner get out from under it if it was profitable and doing well? I just feel like we're rubber stamping a different set of names, and I'm not quite sure why.
I don't think anybody's suggesting that we rubber stamp it. I mean, we're discussing it, and I agree it needs to be much more clearly defined. And I think all of us here agree with that. Ed,
Yes.
do you have any comments?
Yes, I think maybe from Rebecca, as the original license holder that we issued a year ago, Did they turn in their used car license?
Did they turn in their used car
Wait,
license?
there was an outfit that was, I think it was Quick Towing, had a license to sell vehicles.
Correct.
They turned in their used car license.
So they renewed their license for the January 2025 year.
So it's
Calendar
still,
year.
theirs is still in effect.
Yeah.
I don't think you
Correct.
can grant two used car licenses to the same property.
It goes with the owner, not the property,
Uh,
which is why they're seeking a new license.
And what's that again?
That's why they're seeking a new license.
Okay, so they'll turn in their other license.
So they can't receive dealer plates and operate and sell the vehicles without having an approved license by the local licensing authority. And the current license says Quick Auto Corp., which doesn't coincide with the current business, so they won't accept that license for them to move forward.
And the other question I have is, here, they're listing, it looks like they're listing 20 vehicles in this site to the left of the business. But the spots requested 1 to 20, but the original spots, A1 to A6, is that included in this?
So from what was communicated to us was that they would be seeking the same amount of spaces that is currently allowed on the lot, which was 26, and that was the updated application that was approved in October 2024.
Okay, so there's already an existing Class 2 license for that address.
Correct.
So
for
I
20.
don't see how we can issue a second used car license until they relinquish the first one. Because basically what we'd be doing is, would be issuing two 26 vehicle used car licenses for the same property.
So when we approve a license, we send it to the state, and they issue dealer plates for the business to operate. So when we terminate a license, it doesn't renew, or there's a new license issued, they wouldn't be able to operate under the state's regulations without their approval.
Granted, but if we issue this license for 26 spots, there's already a license in effect for 26 spots under a different ownership. So I think the original owner should relinquish that license, or it's some way in written that upon issuing of this 26 vehicle license, that the other one will be relinquished, because basically they'd both be operating out of the same spot. And there isn't enough room for 52 vehicles here.
Correct. We could make that part of the motion.
Yeah, the state would pretty much take care of that once they get the new application. They wouldn't allow the other one to operate, because that's the way it works. But yeah, we could definitely do that. Steve?
I think just, looking at this and obviously not being part of the discussion last year, I mean, I think I have some questions for the business owner, and since they're not here, I don't know how we move forward.
I don't mean to pry. We got the email that the meeting was at 7 o'clock.
Oh, well, come on
Well, there
in.
you go.
And I heard you talking, I didn't know I could come in.
Yeah, come on in.
Most,
Adriano Lopes, this is Carlos Guerrero, we're the owners of
Good timing.
the 730.
Perfect.
Timing.
And I heard you saying since we were down here, so that's why I came in.
Of course.
And I apologize for not coming in, because the email said 7 o'clock, so I thought you guys had to talk about it before we came in.
oh, no, this is a public meeting. We're on TV. There's nothing private going on here.
No worries. So you had questions for the owners?
I just heard the details, understanding it.
Good, I'm glad.
Do we want to ask them for an extra microphone? So they don't have to keep running to the podium?
Go to the- yeah.
I hate the podium. They're both, there's two. Yeah, don't we have an extra microphone?
Yes, I believe right in that cabinet, right there.
Rebecca's on
Do you
it.
want to tell Ed his microphone?
With the yellow skirt. That we can't open. So the only reason we use the microphone, just, I'm Kathy by way of explanation, is that the broadcast is going out onto our public access television station, and if you don't speak into a microphone, evidently, whatever you say doesn't go to there. We'll hear it, but people watching,
Feel important here with the microphone in my hand.
I know, it's just, we don't have any other way to broadcast the sound to the
Yes, ma'am.
recording, yeah. Okay. So what do you think we should do, Chairman? Start over?
No, I don't think we
Synopsis?
need to start over.
I-
Steve had some questions.
You can ask a question. I heard most of the.
Yeah, so I think maybe just tell us a little bit about what you're looking to do and how it differs from what's being done
The
today.
one thing that you were talking about is the license would not, the gentleman, Mr. Edward, was talking about true license. There won't be true license in that. We're applying to take over, or the reason that we applied is because we can't have, his license cannot transfer to us, from my understanding. So we have to apply for a new one.
Right.
So it won't be 50 cars, 52 cars under the same license. And I wasn't going to mention it, but as far as the number of cars, we could do, we can lower the number of cars if that's the issue.
It
And
was
we
one, yeah.
we took over the business back in March last year for the collision business.
Okay,
New
so
Craft
you
Collision.
took over.
We own that as well.
Okay,
And then the owner he's going somewhere, and then he decided to sell the license. That's when we came in and took over. As far as the space, all the cars are capped in the back as it was told,
right.
as he was told before when he came in to apply for his. The lot has been cleaned. The fire department has been there for a few times. That place, according to them, that place has never been the way it is right now.
Isn't
We
it?
don't keep any old cars on the street. Nothing is parked on the street. All the trash is kept in place. We don't tow. There's no more towing unless there's a car that needs to be towed. We call the tow, but we don't store any trucks or any oversized vehicles there. So that's where I stand right now.
Can I ask a question, Jake?
Absolutely.
Oh, so are you going to be doing are you going to be the lessor to somebody who's going to be leasing from you? Or are you going to be, you're the owner right now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you want to lease some of the business, right?
No.
Then-
We're doing both, the collision and the car dealer.
So why do we have documentation of a lease? Like in-
According to we were told that needed to be presented.
Because to me, that was the most confusing part, like, because in your documentation, you say what you want to do on the premises. And then when it gets down to the lease, it says, "The premises shall be used for any lawful use that does not conflict with any other exclusive or prohibited use within the building." It doesn't make sense to me, like, what that means in terms of, it's a small, business.
Correct.
You have a small building and you have parking, and so you're telling me, if I'm understanding you, that you're going to be both selling used cars and doing some repairs?
Correct.
Okay, and you're not leasing this business to anybody?
No, ma'am.
This is a copy of the lease that you originally.
We leased it
signed.
from the previous owner.
Okay, so,
So we
'Cause the-
require them to show that there's ownership
yes,
and they are able to sell and operate.
okay,
So that's why the lease is requested, or a deed or a title to the property to show that you're granting a license to somebody who has the rights to use the property for such.
but we were provided this lease as if somebody else is leasing, and now we're saying nobody is leasing from you, you're it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
That lease is probably under New Craft, which is, as I mentioned, also owned by us.
So do we need the lease as part of our documentation still?
We just need to have proper documentation showing that they own or lease the building and have the right to operate a used car sales location and/or repair shop.
Right. But I mean, in order to understand it, they're not leasing to anybody.
No, that's why I stated that the lease started in March of 2024.
So the lease
Because they
doesn't
leased
need
it
to
from
be
that.
part of the documentation.
It needs to be part of it because it proves they have the right to operate out of that particular building.
They own the building, of course they can operate out of it if we give them a license. I mean, this, to me, this is a circular argument. It makes absolutely no sense, because my concern is, anybody looking at this documentation will look at us and go, well, why'd you approve a lease if they're not leasing it to anybody?
So then maybe we request that the applicant provide documentation that they own the building.
Correct, that would be good, and then since he says he's open to a small reduction in the number of cars, maybe we go revisit what the building inspector recommended. I don't think it was much of a change, was it? I don't recall.
The email that I pulled up just said that they had concerns about the space being tight in addition to the employee parking spaces and work that was being done for the collision aspect of that area.
Okay,
But there was no identification of a number that I could find in the latest correspondence.
Yeah, I remember, because my argument was that that would be on them, because it's their responsibility to operate the cars and not ding them up, because they'd end up fixing them.
Right.
Did you have any other questions,
I do not.
Ed?
So the present owner, you're going to be leasing from the present owner, you're not going to be buying the building.
Where the lease is with the option to buy, eventually
I'm
We're
sorry,
gonna try
the lease is with what?
with the option to buy,
Bye.
so eventually, we're going to buy the building as well. But right now, we're leasing.
So right now you're running a collision repair.
Yes, sir.
So you have repair plates for that business?
Yes, sir.
And what about the owner of the property? Because he now has the license for used cars and repair.
Well, the repair, when we took over the collision, we applied for a repair shop with the state. So that his number no longer applies to that.
No.
So the state gave us a new repair shop number, which is directed to that specific building and address.
I'm all set, I think.
Becky?
I just want to help clarify, bring it all together here. So Quick Service Auto Center still owns the building, right?
Correct.
And they're leasing it to you, and you own Newcraft Collision and CNA Pre-Owned Auto Sales? You own both of those?
7 and 3.
Okay.
Enterprise, correct.
Oh, and, okay, I saw the 7 and 3 Enterprise, so
Yes, ma'am.
that's where it confused me, because I see that there's 3 different, so 7 and 3 Enterprises is the top, and then you have Newcraft Collision, and then CNA Pre-Owned Auto Sales?
CNA.
Yeah, that.
Oh, yeah, excuse me. Yes, correct.
Okay.
Pardon. It kind of.
No, that's okay, I know, it's a long day, I'm sure. Yeah, so it's just all the different company names trying to get straight.
Yes, ma'am.
So technically, you are still leasing, so that a lease would still apply, right? Because it's a
Right.
lease to own.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay,
The reason we opened CNA because we couldn't operate under the same tax ID number.
okay,
So it requires the.
okay. It makes sense to me now.
Yes.
Thank you.
Does it make enough sense to you make a motion?
Well, no, because I think we need to they have to be the owner to get the license.
No, they just have to prove that they have permission to operate, and the lease does that. That's why the lease is in the agreement. Correct.
They don't own the building.
Okay, because you
lease.
originally indicated you said you owned this, and now you don't own it.
Pardon me?
They were owning the business.
I thought you owned the property. You
No,
do
not
not
the
own
property. No, it says right there, it's owned by Quicken Auto.
So we're just transferring the existing business license to the entity that's leasing?
Yes.
That's,
And is that who applied for the?
We
He-
can't transfer it. It
he
has to be
not,
a new
he's not
license.
transferring, that's,
Okay, but who, let me just see. Are the names the same on the,
The license name will be different. It will be granted to CNA Pre-Owned Auto Sales, which is currently not the licensee for that property.
correct.
And so they need this license in order to go to the RMV and get the dealer plates in order to operate. That's why they can't use the current license.
okay, and the current owner has not offered a letter or anything?
I'm sorry.
The current owner of this property didn't issue any documentation?
Not that I'm aware of.
Just the lease, right? The lease, they're on the lease. Where you see Quick Service Auto Center.
Well, yeah, but so, because once we give the license to them, the other entity doesn't have a license to do business anymore. They cannot sell cars, they cannot use that property for
The
business.
license
He is done.
expires when the owner stops operating.
Yep,
That's how it's written in the law. The new owner cannot legally sell vehicles under the old owner's license. The old license held by the original licensee will expire when they stop operating.
okay, and do we have a letter that they're stopping? I'm just trying to say, we have all this paperwork, it seems really good, a lot of paperwork. But once we issue the license to the new entity, the owner entity no longer has the license to do anything on that property. So everything that's on that property belongs to
If needed, I can get him to do
the
one.
the people that are leasing. Is that what we're supposed to assume? I know, I just wish it was a little more clear.
Of course.
Exactly, it's not, I'm not anti-business, and I agree, the place is more cleaned up than it's ever been. But I want to make sure that we're doing this the right way, and I've never seen it done this way. That's my concern. I'm unsure as to whether this is in order for us to go ahead and give out another license.
We can have the applicant provide documentation from the current business owner.
Of course. Yeah, I can get him to do a letter and we can bring it over or hand it to the person that would like to see it.
Yes, Ed?
Who owns the vehicles that are for sale on the lot right now? Do you own them, or do they?
There's none
The
on the
the
lot
other
right
owner?
now. There's none on the lot right now, sir.
There's no vehicles?
No, sir.
There's
It is
vehicles up on the top section where they want to put 20 vehicles. There's vehicles up there all the time.
Those are from the collision.
that?
The collision,
Those are all collision?
correct.
Where are they going to go after you get the license?
Well, we're gonna divide the lot. We'll see what number,
Doesn't look like you're going to divide the lot. You got it signaled out, that you want 20 spaces up there for vehicles for sale.
we're gonna see how many vehicles we can fit, and then we'll divide, as was mentioned earlier, the number of cars for the dealer will diminish, right now, I believe it's at 26, correct? We're willing to lower that number in order to comply with the rules and make sure we do the collision and the dealership without going over that number.
So you want some of those 20 spots for vehicles that are there for collision repair?
Correct.
You didn't state that. You want a 26-car license. Mr. Chairman, I think that we should table this until we get more information.
Yeah, as long as we get enough of what information we need. I mean, there's 26 spots on that lot that we approved for automobiles. I don't believe we limited every spot to one type of car versus the other. We had requested that they try to keep the damaged cars towards the back out of the sight of the public.
Correct.
Which, for the time that they had multiple cars there, they were complying with. I know that the town administrator had requested to get rid of the tow truck that was parked on the sidewalk. They complied with that, they cleaned up the sidewalk. So I don't see how we can specifically label their parking spots for them, other than making that request that they keep the place looking properly. I think in the past, they've done that. I don't see an issue with them getting the license and continuing in business as it is. I think if there is a problem moving forward, it's something for Sam that would enforce it based on our previous decisions, and then bring it up to us and we can discuss it going forward. Their auto license is only going to be good for 1 year, and we revisit it every single year, and it's actually going to be less than a year, because come January, it's going to be time for a new license, and if we have a problem, we can address it before then. So I don't see holding them up or trying to get a letter from the owner and as being extremely productive. We have a lease, they have permission to operate. They are going to operate as has been done. And if they don't, then we can hold them to it. But that's my opinion.
If I could.
Yes, Kathy?
So in the description, and I side a little more with Select Member Ed Watson, that it says they are projecting a monthly sales of approximately 20 vehicles. And that is where the number, oh, well, maybe you're going to need about up to 20 spots for new cars. I know the spots in front of the building are designated for customers, employees, cars to be sold. The plan was laid out pretty specifically. So to say that there wasn't any indication of how many cars could be there that were being repaired versus sold is not quite accurate, because in the past, the resident complaints were about how the place had declined and how there were a lot of, broken, damaged cars, leaking things, not being cleaned up, and all in the middle of a neighborhood. So again, the new owner came in and the cleanup was apparent. But right now, it almost looks a little empty, so that would explain this transfer that we're seeing here. That's why there's not that many cars there right now. So I guess my concern would be just that it would be helpful to have clarification on, how much of the business is going to be cars for sale and how much of the business is going to be delegated towards cars waiting to be repaired. Just because it's proximity to neighbors and, that kind of work can be noisy and messy, and it's been great so far. Right now, with the split that happened, it was working really well. I had several people who live in that area said they were really happy with how much it was cleaned up. There's people right off the backyard there now, right across the street. There's residences everywhere, and I didn't hear one complaint. So that's good news. So if you were part of the
It was
regime,
our, excuse me. sorry.
yeah, that was you.
Our main concern, going in,
Yeah.
trash. We also own a shop in Malden.
Okay,
Carlos takes care of this one, and I stay in Malden. I'm
Okay.
usually in Malden, but I oversee both. Excuse me.
microphone, I know.
We went in, the amount of trash we took 3 roll-offs out of that place,
I'm sure.
including, trash, old parts, and other stuff. We had to get a new EPA ID, to be compliant with everything.
Yeah.
We did what we were supposed to do. There's nothing that
I
we're
agree.
doing right now that's not code compliance. So,
And to my knowledge, that parking plan is still in effect.
Right.
If it does depict specifically where they are, that would
Yeah.
be for Sam to enforce.
So
Yep.
could we make a motion that would be contingent just on them providing the town administrator with a document that shows the owner is okay with this? That's my only other concern, is the owner.
Sorry.
The owner's not here. And I'm not saying I don't believe you, but
Yeah, of
it'd be
course.
nice to know from the owner that, yup, this is fine,
Yeah, of course.
before we issue another business license.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
You go first.
they have the lease, so in my mind, that's agreement with the owner that they can use the building as they see fit. So I don't see why we would hold it up based on that. And, I mean, I think, given what we've heard and the fact that, you know, they have done a great job of cleaning up the lot and kind of complying with the rules, you know, I'm willing to make a motion that we approve the application as written.
Is that a motion?
Yes, it's a motion.
I'll
Yep.
second that.
So second that. Any further discussion? You had something, Ed?
Yeah, I disagree with you. We are actually designating those 20 spots up top for used vehicles, not for vehicles there for repair. And I thought, it's been a while since I dealt with this, but I thought that the vehicles under repair had to be behind a fence. They had to be hidden from view.
I know that was a recommendation, and like I said, if I'm wrong and the actual parking plan that's in place depicts that, again, that would be something for Sam to have that he would enforce. And he already has it. It's already in place. We're not changing that. So I don't see that as being an issue.
The original permit did say that a maximum of 26 vehicles for sale may be displayed on the property and must be situated in an orderly fashion within the bounds of said property. Disabled vehicles towed on the property must be stored within a fenced area, out of view, out of the public eye, within 5 days of the tow. So that was the original approved permit that was issued to the Quick Auto.
And so that would just carry over, and then that would be an enforceable act, so.
But he just stated that some of those spots are going to be used for vehicles that are there for collision repair.
Well, he's going to have to comply with that.
Am I correct in that? You said you're going to use some of those spots, up top, the 20 spots for vehicles for sale, and some of them for vehicles that are there for repair.
That's correct. But the number, we talked about this, before we came in. The number of cars that we gonna be selling, if it's 5 tops, to be honest with you.
I mean, ultimately, if he wants to use those for the damaged cars, then it would have to be fenced in.
Fenced in, right.
And once you, and if that becomes an issue, that was something that Sam would come over and say, hey, this is not in compliance, you have to make it in compliance, and that's when the discussion would happen.
Of course.
Any other discussion?
Yes, and just still, for the record, what are your names, please?
My name's Adriano Lopes.
Yes?
My name is Carlos Pereira.
Carlos
Okay.
Pereira.
And those are the names that are on as owners. Carlos, yeah, as the owners. But of the business, but also of the owners of the business at 737 Salem Street. And the prior license said different names, correct? Yes, because I remember speaking with a woman who came in about that. So I would like to just make an amendment to the motion that we get a letter from the owner indicating that this is fine. You know, whatever the, has to
Friendly
say.
amendment? You good with that friendly amendment?
Would a notarized letter?
That'd be
do it?
fine, yes.
Okay.
Just because I heard you say your name, Carlos. I think that's.
Adriano.
Adriana and Carlos,
Yes,
yes.
ma'am.
Got you. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate that.
Sure.
Sure?
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yep.
So let's take a vote on the amendment. All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 opposed. And then the vote on the actual motion.
As amended, yeah.
All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 opposed.
Opposed? I think we need more information.
Duly noted, sir. Okay, and with that, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Second? All in favor? Unanimous.
And thank you for your patience.
Thank you
This-
very much.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
sorry for
We
not
don't
coming
see
in
this
early. I didn't want to
documentation
pry
that
in 'cause
much.
I thought it was,
Yeah, it's a little
it was
confusing.
the first, discussion, and then we would
Yeah.
come in.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I'm glad you
I-
came, because it helped a lot.
Thank you so
Good.
much.
Thank you much.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
All right. I don't see any notes here that we have any public comment. No departmental updates. And with that, we'll jump into Group Insurance Commission discussion with Senator Tar. Thank you for coming.
Good to see you all. Glad the air conditioning's working.
Yes. I think we all are on a day
For
like
now.
this.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I know. Everybody hates insurance, right? So, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but we all hate the price and the cost and all, so.
You guys want me to go there?
What happened to
You
that
can stand there, you can
microphone?
Take the mic, whatever you prefer.
Oh, there, where's the microphone? Oh, there it is. Yeah, wherever you're most comfortable. So they forwarded to you my ramble of questions. It's kind of a mind, just getting it all on paper.
Stream of consciousness.
Yeah, a little bit, thanks. I don't know how it sounds to you. It made sense to me at the time, but, yeah, it was just, I know you spoke about it, and then as I read different things on it, I thought, oh, and then I thought, wow, this is not going away. This isn't a one-time thing.
So my remarks on the floor were more centered around the fact that we were doing a supplemental budget very late in the fiscal year for a sizable amount of money.
Yeah.
And my question was, how did this happen and how did we get to that point? The supplemental budget that ultimately was approved was $240 million. It was done on May 15th. And there are a couple of different factors for that, but interestingly enough, there seems to be one that is the most often cited for causing this imbalance between the collection of premiums and the payment of benefits, and it centers around a class of drugs that I think we're all aware of. It seems like you can't turn on the television and not see one of these drugs advertised. They're called GLP-1s, or glucagon-like peptides. And they historically have been prescribed for folks with diabetes to try to get their blood sugar levels and
Yeah.
their glucagon levels into control, but have more recently begun being prescribed for weight loss. And there is an interrelationship between those two things. So the predominance of those drugs and the prescription for those drugs, and they're very expensive, has caused a tremendous problem not only for the Group Insurance Commission, but for insurers elsewhere in the private market.
Right.
And so the response immediately was to pay the $240 million, because if we didn't do that, claims for folks that are employed, that are public employees, would have been in jeopardy because there wouldn't have been adequate funds to pay those claims. So we needed to do what we did. And since that time, there's been two moving pieces. One most recently happened on Independence Day, and that is the governor vetoed or reduced the appropriation for the Group Insurance Commission for the current fiscal year by, I think it was $27.5 million, and gave a directive to the Group Insurance Commission to reduce eligibility for those class of drugs, to restrict it to indications only for diabetes and not for weight loss. And the thought is that that's going to dial in some savings, and she tried to recognize those savings by reducing their budget by the amount that it's projected to save. It actually could wind up being more than that, given the trends that we're seeing, because it's not a static situation. The predominance of the drugs has been going like that. So it will probably have a more long-term effect. There was also an attempt in the Senate version of that budget to change the contribution rates. So there is a split, and it centers around the year 2003, where someone coming into state service prior to that date pays 20% of the cost of the insurance, and someone after that pays 25%. And in the Senate version of the budget, there was an attempt to make everyone at the 25% level. That did not prevail, and so the House language prevailed in the ultimate budget that reached the governor's desk, and that split remains. So looking at contribution levels and looking at GLP-1s has been the response to try to understand how to make sure that we have a stable system, because the stakes here are very high. We're talking about health insurance for a lot of folks in public service. And so it's not only a matter of balancing the budget for the Commonwealth, which is important, but I would argue more importantly is the public health of the people that are the beneficiaries of this insurance. So that's kind of where we're at right now, Kathy, and I think the conversation is going to continue. I have no doubt. So,
Okay, well, they said that even prior to this, there was what they call the structural deficit. Seems to be the term of the decade here. Everybody has a structural deficit, which means that the insurance wasn't collecting enough to pay for itself anyway.
yeah.
And that wasn't a concern?
So that's why the attempt to change the contribution rates was made, because there's a whole class of folks. I actually have a conflict of interest here because I'm one of them,
Yeah.
that pays at the lower level.
Yeah,
And so there was an attempt in the Senate budget, which was endorsed unanimously, to go to 25% for everyone. But again, that did not prevail. It was in the Senate version of the budget,
okay.
but it did not make it through conference committee.
Right, because this health insurance program has a lot of people in it.
It absolutely
All of
does.
our Pentucket school teachers, I believe, are under it.
Yeah.
All of our town employees are under it. And then you have all the retirees
Mm-hmm.
who have served and are under it. And one article said that even if you didn't have the funds, you'd still have to pay the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying they wouldn't?
Well, it would be deficit spending, and I'm not sure where the GIC would otherwise find those dollars. So from my perspective, if we did not appropriate those funds, the claims couldn't be paid unless there was some mechanism, whether it was borrowing
Yeah.
or some other mechanism to be able to satisfy the claims.
So would you say that since the pandemic, the costs have been going up at a much higher rate than anticipated?
They've certainly been increasing. I'm not so sure that they've gone up at a higher than anticipated rate. We've seen dramatic increases, particularly in the last couple of years. And you noted Pentucket. A lot of our school districts have been indicating very substantial increases in premiums for their employees that are not in the GIC. So I think it's a situation that's been across the board. I do not know if it's pandemic related. But I do know that GLP-1s have been cited as one of the major causes.
Right. It would be good, I suppose they're never probably going to do it, but to go back and figure out why this, exactly what are all the contributing factors?
Yeah.
Because if you don't really figure that out, just pouring more money in does something. But the question I have is, we set our budget. Do you think we're going to be asked to have to pay more?
I would never say never, but I don't think so.
Okay, well, don't think so is a good answer. Yes,
And I would point out that analysis here is very important, and not only does the Group Insurance Commission do its own analyses,
okay.
but we also have two agencies in the Commonwealth. One is the Center for Health Information Analysis, known as CHIA, and the other one is the Health Policy Commission, and they both look at cost trends, not only with regard to the cost of insurance, but also for the cost of care. And they set benchmarks and try to enforce those benchmarks. The enforcement piece has been very controversial, and having the ability and the teeth to enforce those benchmarks has been very difficult. But the goal has always been to keep the cost of care, upon which the insurance claims are based,
Yeah,
somewhat in alignment with the cost of inflation. And that's been a very challenging thing to do. And part of that, number one, is that medicine is advancing. We have new classes of drugs that are miraculous,
Right.
but they're much more expensive than the ones we've seen in the past, number one. Two, longevity is increasing, and that's very significant.
yeah,
And three, technology is increasing, and the cost of that is very significant as well. So there's a balancing act here between trying to make sure that folks in Massachusetts have access to the very best of care, much of which is actually developed in this state, and trying to make sure that we can keep the costs so that they're affordable, not only for government, but again, for the folks that are paying the premiums for their own care, for their
So
own insurance.
people, residents of Massachusetts can buy into the GIC as well?
Well, they don't buy into the GIC, they buy into the Health Connector,
Okay,
and many of them are actually on Mass Health, and there has been a Mass Health buy-in, but that may well be affected by the bill that was just signed by the president on Independence Day. We're still waiting to see how those details are going to work out. And that's significant because if you look at the cost of Mass Health alone, it's approximately 36% of the entire state budget. And if you look at the cost of all healthcare spending, then that number moves to between 40 and 50% of the entire state budget. So the consequences of changes here are very significant.
so do you think this year they'll take a quicker look at this before the deficit gets too big? Okay,
I do, and that was the point of my fairly passionate remarks on the floor of the Senate, was that we ought to be doing that rather than waiting till
May,
the last couple of months of the fiscal year to make that kind of an adjustment.
okay. So we can rest easy that our budget is balanced and you're not coming back, probably not coming back.
Easier, but you know about predicting the future.
Never say never, right?
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, so anyway, thank you, I appreciate that. I just wanted to make sure, with a good conversation, that we don't have to put this into a task force, because we've got enough groups going on right now that if we have to take on one more thing,
understood.
and we might fall down.
Well, I will assure you that having taken the stand that I did, we'll continue to be following this as well. And if we see any indicators of alarm, we'll certainly relay those to you. And, would, as with every other matter that affects the town, would want to partner with you to move forward and find solutions. Right now, I don't have that concern. But again, things can change.
Right, and the drugs that are driving this, are they going to end up being one of those things that somehow you get from Canada at half the price?
My understanding is right now, the bulk of them are produced either in Denmark or Switzerland.
Really?
And that monopoly is part of what's causing some of the issues.
Ah,
But again,
that's surprising to me. Yeah.
But-
Those are my questions.
Awesome. Does anybody else have any questions?
No.
No? No?
No?
Thank you very much.
thank you,
for
Mr.
coming in
Chairman.
And explaining that, I appreciate it.
I'm happy to do it, and again, appreciate the partnership with the board and the administrator. And on that note, if I could take one more minute to just thank the town administrator and congratulate all of you. We had a very successful partnership in the state budget that was just signed into law by the governor on behalf of the town, and a supplemental budget that was signed just shortly before that primarily used the money from the income tax, surtax. And so in the surtax supplemental budget, we were able to appropriate $45,000 for the Salem Street Dam for repairs that you need to make. And in the General Appropriations Act, we revisited something that I've been working on with all of you for, seems like forever, and that is the so-called Valley Screw property. And Rebecca had sent us some information about the need potentially in the near future to raise that building, and I certainly hope we can get permission to do that. But in anticipation of that, and knowing that it was not an anticipated expense for the town, I was able to insert $20,000 into the state budget for those purposes. So I think it reflects the communication that we have and the partnership that we have, and it certainly paid dividends here. So,
Absolutely. Thank you, and thank you very much for all your hard work.
thank you.
Not just for us, but for everybody else in your area.
Thank you.
Because I do see that a lot in the paper, particularly for Gloucester, O'Malley School, and some other things that you've done.
It's an honor to do, and it's an honor to partner with all of you.
I read your electricity talk, too.
Uh.
I like it.
We've got a lot of work to do.
I like it.
Before you step away, Senator,
Yes, sir, Ed.
just a shout out to your office staff. Anytime you call the office, the staff are very polite. If they don't have the answer, they get right back to you. And I'm telling you, sometimes in 15 minutes. And, when I've called the office, they're all of them. If it's a different person answering the phone. So it sounds to me like you did something right. You got some good people in there.
Well, thank you.
And they're doing a great job, and I hope you'll pass that on to them.
Ed, we have a staff call every day at 11:30, and you just got to be the highlight of tomorrow's. And I will do that, and I always say to my staff that our number one job is constituent service. Number one. So we're always there, and we encourage people to call us and reach out. And as you mentioned, if we don't have the answer, we'll try to find one, and as quickly as we can.
Well,
Thank
some of the stuff that I've asked them, I'm just amazed that they get back to you. A couple of them had to be referred to the legal department, and they're back within 15 minutes. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you're right about the public service, but that's the same thing as us, what we're sitting here for, too. Thank
It absolutely is, no doubt about it.
you. Good job.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you. Well, thank you all, and have a good night.
Yep,
All right,
enjoy your
thank you.
summer.
All right, with that, we'll go on to the intermunicipal agreement. I believe we have a copy in our packet.
Correct. So we've been working with the North Shore Regional 911 Center about the regionalization of our dispatch center. We had an original meeting with the fire chief and the police chief, and we had provided some information in regards to some of the staffing struggles that we're having over at the dispatch. We continue to have those staffing challenges. Right now, we have officers who are filling the shifts just to make sure that we have somebody there. We did have to move forward with a side letter of agreement with the collective bargaining unit in order to do so. So we are making it work in the interim, and we did receive great information from the North Shore Regional 911 Center that they would be willing to accept us into their program. And they had stated that as soon as we sign the IMA, they will begin onboarding, and we could see services as soon as December of this year, which would be phenomenal, as, again, with another officer leaving for the academy in October or September, it kind of does leave us with a lot of vacancy. And to fill those spots with the understanding that we are moving in that direction, that doesn't seem very responsible either. So the chief is very eager to move forward. You'll see in your packet that both the police chief and fire chief have submitted a letter of support for moving forward with the IMA. We did have a great conversation with the state. They, once the IMA is signed, they are willing to help us with some staffing as well within their capabilities, and we're very grateful for that. So we're just looking for a vote to approve and to authorize the select board chair to sign the IMA to allow us to proceed. And I did also send this document over to town council, and they have no issues with the document as written. And you will see that there's two documents in your packet. One is the original IMA that was signed with the original communities, and you'll see that they add amendments to that document every time a new community is signed on. So we're looking for the signature on the one for specific to Groveland, but the others are included for your review.
So I'll make a motion to approve the intermunicipal agreement and to allow Chairman Jason to sign on behalf of the select board.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Any further discussion?
Just, just one thing. I know we had talked at the original discussion about this around internet paths and things like that. I just want to make sure before December we follow up on that with figuring out what that plan's going to look like if we haven't already.
So we have not finalized the plan of moving forward. We just need to figure out exactly what we need to put in place that will accommodate that security that the rec is looking for, in addition to what our IT consultant would advise.
That's all.
That's all? All right, without any further discussion, then call for the vote. All in favor? Unanimous?
Mr. Chairman, maybe just for anybody that's watching this show on this evening, just to let them know that this is all at no cost to the town to join this, because it's separately funded.
Yes, and we're going to be getting quite extensive upgrades, to my understanding, to our systems that we would normally have to pay for. If I remember the figures, they were somewhere in the neighborhood of $790,000 worth.
Right, and then there'll be as part of it, that the fire chief would be a member of the fire advisory board, the police chief a member of the police advisory board, the town administrator would be a member of the administrative advisory board, And then they have an executive advisory board that's comprised from all those other members. So we do get to weigh in on this operation. We're not
Won't
like,
get lost.
we're not
We'll be a
sitting
part
here,
of
disconnected. We have a lot of representation from the town guiding this, so I feel
think
pretty
it's
good about
great.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And now I'll move on to the memorandum of agreement.
So this is a memorandum of agreement with the Groveland Police Superiors Officers Association. So we had discussed this at a prior meeting in regards to the separation of the, both the lieutenant and the sergeant, administrative sergeant, from the patrolmen's union and creation of a superiors union, which would include anything higher than a sergeant, so it would be the lieutenant and the captain. So you'll see later on in the meeting, we're looking for a promotion of both Lieutenant Riley to captain and Sergeant Petroni to lieutenant. But that would be incorporated as part of the Superior Officers Association. So you'll see the MOA in your packet. Essentially, what it does is it outlines exactly what is in the patrolman's contract. So everything will be essentially the same, except the roles and duties, as well as a 1% increase in both for their rank. So both for 1% in addition for the captain and 1% in addition to the lieutenant. So those current percentages are 30% and 15%, excuse me, which have been increased to 31% and to 16%. Everything else will mimic the agreement that is currently in place with the patrolmen's union.
Does anybody have any questions?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement for the Groveland Superior Association, Mass Cop Local 420.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Since there's none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Unanimous. Next on our agenda is the United Cricket League request for to be able to have a temporary shed on town property.
Correct. They currently have a shed on the property, but it's a fabric type structure, and if you look at it, it's been ripped to pieces by the elements, so all of their equipment that they store in there, out of sight, out of mind, when they're not using the property, is becoming damaged, so they have requested to erect another temporary structure in its place. I did send the email over to the Conservation Commission. There are wetlands in the property to make sure that there would be no concerns with the location. The location is to be the same exact location as it is currently, the same size. The information is in your packet. They do say that they had photos, but as pointed out, the photos were not included in their application.
You say it's the same size. Do you know what that size is?
I believe it's in the actual document. It is not in that document.
Good, because I would have felt really dumb. I was pretty sure I read it pretty clearly.
Yes, my apologies. I know we had a conversation about it, but I assumed it was in the document, and it is not, so I will take a second to look that up.
And then, depending on the size, doesn't that dictate whether or not there needs to be a permit pulled? Anything over 10 by 10?
I would have to confirm with the building inspector, but
Because I know when I was looking at doing a gazebo down at the dog park, that was something that was a concern of his. Anything over 10 by 10 required a permit. And then if it has sides, then the fire chief may need to get involved.
correct.
So I do think we need a little bit more information on what they plan on putting up there before we can make a good informed decision.
We can do that. I can get more information from Mohit and see what he says.
It might be beneficial to have that information go through Sam, just so he can clarify what they need in terms of any permits for the structure or anything like that, and direct them to the fire chief if necessary. I believe Sam would know whether or not it would need to be directed that way. And that way, when it comes back before us, then we would have some comments from Sam.
And I would like to see pictures of the current structure as well as what they're actually proposing putting there.
If we go down to the gates on the field and go straight in, will we see it?
So if you go into the gate and you look to the right, you'll see
Okay.
it.
I'll go down and take a look at it.
And I'll have all of that
Field trip.
information with confirmation from Sam in regards to the size and whether or not a
like
permit's
our field
necessary.
Awesome.
Yep.
And I suppose we'll just put that in our next agenda.
Sounds good?
We should have the information. Next is our advertising policy review. Did everybody take a look at the policy?
Yes.
Anybody
Yeah.
have any questions on the policy?
Yes.
And again, this was a draft that we put together based upon the feedback that was discussed at the last meeting and the reference to Boxford and another community. So it was just something to get you started.
Yeah, not jumping on you, don't worry. My two questions, like, who is responsible for removing the advertising? Like, who's responsible now for that cleanup of that? It's the lobby area you're talking about, right? So it includes the bulletin board and the lobby tables? So like everything within the lobby? Is there someone who's like responsible now, or is it just whoever takes a look at it when you walk by?
We kind of just divide and conquer. So if
Right.
we see a bunch of things out there, we try and make sure that it's up to date, and other things that have passed, we take down.
Okay.
But there is no like formal procedure.
Right, okay.
Could we make it part of the policy that you have to remove it 7 days after your event or something like that? Just so that, you know, maybe not everyone will, but it might save a little bit of time from having to go there and look at everything. I think that might be a good change.
So, are we discussing the policy? So what I would suggest, if we're going to have a policy, that you'd have it at the discretion of the town administrator, because we're not here every day. And somebody might come in with, you know, the Boy Scouts are doing something in 2 weeks, and we would not be meeting in time. And I trust that if it's something that the town administrator thinks we should have to think about, yeah. But otherwise, just like with reserving any part of the buildings or fields, we allow the town administrator to handle that and let us know. I don't like the word advertising. I just don't think of the town as in the business of advertising for anybody, because I would not want us to be perceived as, you know, putting out flyers for one business or another in town, you know, getting involved in that. So is there another word? Or do you want us to start advertising different services in town? I just never thought we wanted to get involved in that. I don't think, I think that's something for the committee, the businesses committee to do. We used to have a Groveland Business Association downtown, and they handled all that stuff. You know, it was private.
Oh, no, I think a community board that allows businesses, particularly local businesses, to post their cards and things of such. And I think that's beneficial for businesses and residents within our town.
Yeah, and I initially thought what you said, Kathy, as well. But then I started to think about things like Black Earth Composting. They might have something up there, and that's a product, right, or a service. So we're advertising those things. So it kind of fit when I kind of looked at it in the context of different services and products that residents might be able to take advantage of.
Well, my concern would just be is when you start posting businesses within the town hall, it is as if we're saying, these are businesses in town that you can go to. And we don't know these businesses all, and you know, other businesses may not feel they're represented. I mean, if you tried to represent every business, the whole board would be filled. And much as you think there's no businesses in town, there are a lot of small, different businesses in this town. I've seen the cards up when the old pizza shop had a bulletin board with everybody's cards up, and that's where, mainly, that's where I think that stuff goes. I always thought the bulletin board out front here and the tables out front were mainly for information of town business kind of thing, not businesses. So I think it should stay that way. I think we should provide information on health topics from the Board of Health, things that are going on in the town, events that are coming up in the town. But I don't think that we want to try to provide a community businesses bulletin board. I don't think that's our task. And certainly those cards wouldn't be up for 7 days at a time. The board would be filled, and then you'd wonder who's in business and who's not, and who's going to clean and sort that out. I think that's a rather tedious chore for people that are working in the town hall that are paid to do much higher types of work than maintain a bulletin board.
Ed, your take?
I'm all set.
No opinion either way?
What's that again?
No opinion either way?
Yeah, that makes sense, though. It shouldn't be for for-profit businesses out there. It should be for town business only.
Town business only? You?
Me? Yeah, I mean, it's not a lot of space out there. I think that's my concern. And that actually prompted another thought. I mean, it says at the bottom, the town reserves the right to remove, deny, or limit materials due to space. So there's nothing on here about size. It's one thing to have, pin a paper
Sure.
on a board, but when we're talking about the lobby tables, there's a lot of those, like pamphlet advertising things. I don't know, I don't know if you want to get in the game of like limiting the size on this document. Maybe that covers it enough. So that would be your discretion if someone drags in a newspaper box, for example, like, that's really not going to fit, right?
So basically, you would want to eliminate number 5.
Yes.
And then update the language to say at the discretion of the town administrator.
Yep. And also with the person holding the event has 7 days to remove the advertisement after the event.
Yeah, I think that would make sense.
Well, so do you want this board to be an events board or an information board? I think, you kind of make up your mind what you want here.
I think it's both. I do.
Well, I think it's a mishmash right now, but so if you wanted to improve it, make a decision. What do you want this board to represent? And go with it. And if you want to wait, take a little more time and see what other towns have come up with, I think
Well,
it's.
I think we could eliminate advertising and service and events,
I think
or
service.
town service and events. I don't know what products, that would be nonprofit. The black composting, is that a nonprofit company?
No.
No.
No,
I think
so
it's a
that
profit.
wouldn't be up there.
No, but the compost grant bin setup thing could be up there.
Information.
Yeah.
So it'd be services and information, services, events, and information, town services and events and information.
Things that have like a timeline. Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes you look at that board and you go, that thing has been up there since, since my kids were in elementary school. That's a long
This
time.
would be a policy for posting on the billboard.
A maximum of 30 days, maybe, something like that? What do you think? I mean, leave it to the town administrator discretion maybe, but suggesting 30 days.
Yeah, that's in there. I think that's good.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a blanket thing where just every 30 days, everything on it comes down. I mean, that is, it's like cleaning out the
Clean
office
house.
fridge, right?
That'd be easy.
Fresh
Hey,
start.
Steve,
First of every month.
Well, if space was a concern, that
Right.
might be, it might be easier than going through item by item and saying, does this have to come down? How long
Yep.
has this been up? Just to say,
so instead of advertising, we could change it to postings here within the language of the body.
yep.
I also think that, at least in the olden days, now I could say that, the town clerk was pretty much in charge of that board. And I don't know if the town clerk has had any.
So we do have 2 locations on that board that are specifically set aside, one for the Council on Aging, and they have a little border and it's sectioned off, and then the other one is for official postings for the town clerk, so if there's like a,
Okay.
the town meeting warrant or an election warrant or something of that nature, it's posted there, and that's kind of boarded off as well, and it does say not for public use, don't
Okay.
remove. So we
So
do
that's
have
how
those
it's
two
evolved.
sections kind of blocked off.
I always just walk past it and like, oh, look. But, so it sounds like it's become more organized already.
Very much so.
So do you think it would be beneficial to put any amount of, suggested amount of time that an event would be posted for? Or do you think just it'll work out?
I think it kind of will work itself out in terms of being a little bit more organized. But like you said, if you want to have something where you take it down within 7 days after the event, that doesn't hurt either.
Right.
And it does alleviate our need to have to go. And we could do a more, at the end of the month, Annie and I go through and we say, all right, we got to clear house and go through that. But then if there's an event and it overlaps between that,
Right.
that person's responsible for taking it down. And then we'll be the catch-all on that. So it doesn't hurt. It's
So-
just really to give us a little bit more guidance based upon the conversation that we all had at the last meeting, so that we feel a little bit more confident in what we're doing, and it's at, the will of the board and what you would like to see us do.
Right. So do you feel like you'd have like an online application, and on that application, it would say, for the individual, if someone comes in to post, like the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, that they should come back and remove it within 7 days after the event?
We can put up something similar to just to say,
Yeah.
like, before posting, please stop in with the town administrator, and then we can just make it a town administrator's office, and we can just let them know, like, you have 7 days to take this down, or
Okay.
else it will be taken down, that
Yep,
kind of thing.
okay.
And that way, too, we kind of know when things are going up there. We do take a look, like we said, when we're walking by, but if we don't know somebody put something up there, sometimes it might take us a little while to recognize it. So at least
Okay.
it gives it a little bit more formality without like an actual application and a process and a printing kind of thing, so. And
Okay.
it's not far.
So they just stop in. They can just stop in, show you what they want to put up, and you'll be like, yeah, okay. Okay. That sounds
Yeah,
reasonable.
I think so.
Give them their
Friendly.
official thumbtack.
Whoa.
Granted the thumbtack.
So what this really is a policy on posting on town bulletins.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to specify any of that, anything in terms of what goes up there, except for that will be discussed in the body of the letter. And I think we should also mention that that's outside the designated area for the town clerk and for the council on aging,
Yep.
because they control those, and that is their area. So I think that's fair.
Agreed.
So you got all that?
Yep. Perfect.
Awesome. So you wanna maybe vote on this next time? We can see it?
Yeah.
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 Get it cleaned up, and then we'll do.
We'll make
one
the
more time.
amendments and we'll add it to the next agenda.
Awesome, thank you. Next, we have a proposed annual inspection fee, which I believe they also included a list of people that would be paying that.
Okay, so that makes sense. I mean, so a $50 fee is well below what the industry charges. I mean, it does help support the services and the work behind the people doing the inspections. So this would be all of the inspectors, the electrical, everybody?
No, I think
Or
this is
just the
specific
building?
for annual inspections for like restaurants, churches,
So would it be the health inspector
town.
or the building inspector?
Correct.
Correct which?
It would be the building inspector.
Okay.
So like for example, this building, the fire chief and, or his designee and the building commissioner will go around and make sure everything is in compliance, and they'll give us a certificate. And so they do
Okay.
that with, others, and we require that if you are, a common vic license, we require that they also show that certification. So that's just the annual inspection that they do.
And then the other would be every 5 years for 3 families, mixed use, 4 units, 4 to 8 units, 8 units plus,
Yep.
an institution, Tumble Academy.
And then the health agent also, don't they do annual inspections?
They do, and they charge a fee for those inspections.
Okay, so we weren't charging on the building side.
Correct, and it's
Okay.
recommended to be 200 as the building commissioner reflects in his letter, and he's recommending that we do something a little bit more modest in the way of $50.
Yep. I saw that.
So do we know if there's a difference in what takes place during an annual inspection versus the ones that have to be inspected every 5 years?
Switching gears.
Like, is it a lot more effort for the 5-year inspection versus the annual inspection? Is it the same inspection, just the duration, the frequency is different?
I believe it has to do with the actual use,
Okay.
which would be residential versus business. So like if you have a landlord who has, a 3-family, so they would need to make sure that they're keeping their tenants safe. I'm not sure, Chief, do you know much about the 5-year inspection for the residential? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, no problem. And what she said is exactly right. The annual inspections are for the businesses. The 5-year is for like the Nichols Village. It's a larger facility. It's required every 5 years. We go through, we make sure everything's within code. Annually, we do a walkthrough. Every 5 years, we do a full-blown inspection.
Understood. So just wonder if it makes sense to have the same fee if there's a higher level of effort for those 5-year inspections. Takes longer if it's more in-depth.
I understand where you're coming from, but fortunately, we only do it every 5 years instead of every year. I could see that more if we did it every year with as the same as the other ones. Personally.
I'm going to recuse myself from this because my rental address is listed. So I just want to, for the record.
Sounds good to me.
I think just going with the recommendation is a good start. And then if you need to revise it later on, we don't have no fee at all right now. So we're not,
Is that a motion?
yes, make the motion to approve the fee as presented.
Second.
Second?
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 abstention. Next is, Ed, you want to discuss Pecker Lane? Nothing, Ed?
No, it looks like it's spelled out, looks like July 1st, a cease and desist.
Yeah, I think the information that we got was it was just a good heads up from our town administrator. I think the building inspector definitely did his part and took care of everything that needed to be taken care of. So unless anybody wants to discuss it any further, I think we can move on. So we'll move on to the Green Tips Initiative.
Yep. I'm getting to it. I'm still going through all
Page 104.
these packets. Wow.
And just before that.
Before that.
Oh, wait, or is it? No, wait, something was out of order.
Oh, is it out of order in my group? Am I out of order?
Some of the things that were listed was avoid individual cans or bottles, cut down on the
Right,
amount
no,
of
I
waste.
had a whole thing, yeah. Can you put it up on the screen maybe so people can see it? Seeing is helpful.
Oh, there you
Oh,
go.
there it is, I got it. Yeah, so I mean, I didn't come up with these on my own. I definitely look for things that people can do. And I think that, we are creatures of habit. And then you don't think about things you're buying and using because, that's what you get. Go out and buy that case of soda or whatever. And so one of the tips is, during the summer when we tend to have more people over and gatherings, buy the plastic bottles of soda. If you're going to use the plastic cups, maybe put names on the cups so you don't have to keep tossing out cups, although they can be recycled. I've noticed, especially in the high school where I work, almost all students have switched to reusable water bottles, which is great, mainly with that Stanley Cup thing that they all wanted to walk around with. I know, it was a status thing to have all different colors, but so many have switched, and I'm like, good. This is a good thing to see. I mean, I used to use the bottled water and lug the case out to the car, and, I switched, and once you switch, then that becomes your habit. So during the summer, when we're all having more people over, if you're going to use the disposable goods to make it easier, try to use ones that are made from recycled products. And otherwise, use reusable plates and utensils, and don't create as much trash. When you have the leftovers, use reusable containers to store them instead of the Ziploc, and don't get me started on the cost of foil. I'm hardly using any foil right now, based on what I last paid for foil. But reusable containers. It's just, until you start taking those small steps, you don't fully appreciate the difference in your trash. I mean, again, I'm the one I tell you that I was doing none of these things 5 years ago. And, step by step, as I learn more about what's going on with our world, with ways to dispose of trash, with the pollution that the disposal of trash does create, I thought, wow, I think we've got to do a little better. And then once we do a little better, then maybe we can do a little better than that. So, yeah, just a few tips like that for the summer. Try and reduce the amount of trash that you end up with after having people over. And you'd be surprised, because once you start the habit, usually you just keep going that way. You don't think about it again.
Anybody else have any green tips?
Every time I read these green tips, and you see it in the newspapers all the time, green tips for being eco-friendly. The most obvious one is never mentioned.
And it is,
Get rid of the clothes dryer, get a rope, hang it up between trees and hang the stuff up, and you can dry the clothes for nothing. You don't have to waste natural gas or electricity. It's obvious, but they never mention it. Even if you read Consumer Reports, when they give you the price of things, they never include that. And then somebody always writes in and said, how about the obvious, a clothesline out in the backyard? They never mention that, but that wastes more energy than all of these things listed on here.
another good idea. And also, I can say that I do have a pop-up. It's not a line, it's a little thing, two pieces of metal, it pops up, and I hang stuff out in the nice weather during the summer, because the dryer ruins my clothes anyway, and it dries fast, and it smells nice. I won't say I put everything out there, but I put a good amount out there. So, yeah, that's another way as electricity prices go up. And maybe you want to use your air conditioner, maybe you don't use your dryer as much, and you offset your electrical bill that way. There's always many good ideas, and again, once you start to do things a certain way, you develop that habit, it works. It works. So, thank you, Ed, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great idea. I think
Mike might have something
Mike
for
might
us.
have an idea as well.
I like this tin can, trash can.
So you're calling this environmental awareness, but what about things like anti-litter, protecting trees, wildlife crossings, wetland practices, wetland protection? I mean, believe me, there's a lot of stuff around that people are doing that we need to make them aware that it's not good to do.
Would you
Having-
like us to have like once a month wetland?
Not necessarily.
Oh,
I'm
once
just
a quarter.
saying, if you're going to call it environmental awareness, we could throw a few of those things in now and then besides trash-related stuff.
No, I agree. I think we could kind of broaden it, and I have to say, learning from Diane about those vines that kill the trees.
Yes.
We had those in our backyard, and I sent my husband out to go kill those vines. And he did. But I would not have even known it, because I kept looking at it, and one tree is totally dead, and I'm thinking, what are those things? And I learned that from listening to Diane talk about those vines.
I think it's a good idea, but I do want to keep it more focused, even if we end up changing the name, just to really hone in on one thing and not making it too broad that we lose people's attention. And I think that's a real possibility. I definitely would encourage Mike to come in at least once a month and talk about environmental things that would be beneficial for everybody to do. But for most of what we do here, I think it's really important to keep it really focused.
Okay.
All right, does anybody else have any green tips? Now, with that, we're going to move on to a one-day liquor license. Take a motion.
I'm going to recuse myself from this one because I'm related to the applicant.
Sounds good?
Okay, and that's the pet save people, right? And it's for July 11th, is it? Because the
Yes.
date wasn't too clear on my, yeah. My thing's out of order, I think. I did read through it, so, oh, there it is. There it is, wait. Okay, yeah. It's a Sweet Paws Rescue, right? And it says it's a fundraiser. Is that just a fundraiser for the Rescue League? Is that what that's for?
I'm assuming.
It, okay. I mean, yeah, I didn't know if there was another specific thing they were fundraising for. Okay. Everything is in order, right? They have the insurance and
Yes.
everything? Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the one-day liquor license. I cannot read this. Stephanie, I don't know. the
Yeah,
la-
Steve, how do you say, I know
Is it a
you-
G? Can someone say the name G?
Gilnet.
Gilnet, of the Sweet Paws Rescue for July 11th, 2025, from 4 to 8 p.m. It's a fundraiser at VZ Memorial Park, expecting 100 people, charging no admission, and they will be providing beer and wine for sale to people who attend.
All right, I'll second that.
Oh, there's names.
Any further discussion? All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 recusal.
Okay.
We have appointments, I believe 3 of them. So I'll make a motion to appoint and promote the promotion of Lieutenant Heather Riley to Captain of the Groveland Police Department.
Second that.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? And I'd like to say congratulations.
Yeah.
Well deserved. I'll make a motion to appoint and promotion of Sergeant Steve Petrone to Lieutenant of the Groveland Police Department.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? And again, congratulations. It's well deserved. And then I'll make a motion to appoint Jonathan Sullivan of Beverly to Town Planner Conservation Agent for the Economic Planning Development and Conservation Department effective July 21st.
Correct.
It's stated here the 18th, but I guess he was requesting a couple more days.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Any further discussion?
Yes, I think we just to talk about what he brings to this job. He's got a pretty impressive resume. Consultant, municipalities, zoning specialist for the city of Portland, Maine, teaching assistant at Northeastern University, digital integration teaching initiative, also at Northeastern, graduated University of Massachusetts, went on to Northeastern for his master's. Lots of good stuff. Very, very, very qualified, and extend like a broader range of skills. I think that will be really helpful to our staff. So, yes.
Ed, you had a question?
Yeah, a couple of questions. The job town planner, conservation agent, what's the total pay for the two positions?
So the hourly rate for the position is $40 an hour, and $15,000 of the allocation comes from the conservation agent line item, and the, I believe it's 65 comes from the town planner.
And what was it, 65?
65 for the town planner.
65,000?
Correct.
And so 65,000 for town planner, and $40 an hour for conservation agent, and how many hours a week will that be?
So it was $65,000 wage allocation as part of the approved town budget for the town planner, $15,000 allocation for the approved conservation agent position. Total would be $40 an hour, and it would be a 40-hour-a-week position.
And wasn't this job eliminated a couple of years ago to, and use the money for an administrative assistant for the town administrator?
The position was not eliminated. We reduced the line item substantially to help cover the cost of assisting with the planning board and zoning board and the planning, town planner function. And we also, at that point in time, had advocated for an executive coordinator for the town administrator.
And what was it, the line item reduced to?
The town planner line item was reduced to $10,000.
Okay, so now we're boosting it up 55,000.
It was $65,000 when I started back in 2018.
So we're boosting it up from, I think when Selectman McDonald was here, that was the agreement, that we eliminate the town planner to fund an assistant for the town administrator.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Kathy?
I think that statement is completely inaccurate. So, I mean, I remember the history of this whole town planner because I was on the finance board when it was created, and it was Jim Freer who advocated so strenuously for it, and I thought, I don't know, what does a town planner do all day? But he was like, you don't understand. He said, all of the documents that I have in my house shouldn't be in my house. These documents should be in an office at the town hall. You should have a town planner because the planning board only meets, a couple times a month. And so that's what drove us to hire our first town planner, who is now our town administrator. But in addition, under, while Rebecca was in the town planning position and Michael Woods was the chairman, there was further efficiencies were achieved because we were able to consolidate all of these outside supports that were for zoning and planning, and I'm probably missing one, and bring it all into one department, and it was at a savings to the taxpayer. It didn't cost them anymore, and it brought in efficiencies, and it brought these services back in-house. And then when our town planner became our town administrator, that's when we had to, make some tough decisions. We wanted this person for our town administrator, and she's excelled at it, but she's also been wearing two hats, and I think we all know that. She's been doing a lot of the duties of the town planner, and it's just not a good thing to have going on. And I know we've spoken about it on this board, and we said that we are pushing this individual too far. She's out like 4 nights a week, working around the clock, and even if we were lucky enough that you were willing to continue to do that, to try and fill that position and get somebody else in here for the amount of money that we were paying to do those two jobs. No way, not anybody with experience. So I know I've advocated for at least 2 years prior to this year that we get a town planner back in here. And I'm very happy that we've done that, and we've consolidated it with a conservation agent, and that makes another efficiency for the town. And, you know, we have, I think, the best working staff that I've ever seen in this town. We have great public safety, police chief, fire chief, hiring good people. We have a town administrator now bringing forward a qualified individual that will contribute to this town, I think, in more ways than we actually realize at this point. So I welcome this, and I don't question this, and we never voted to eliminate a town planner.
Correct. I believe we did not vote to eliminate the position. I know Dan McDonald was not a big fan of the town planner position, but what came about was Annie wanted to step down as planner. Rennie had left as a superintendent. So there was a reorganization of highway, planning, along with the administrative assistant, which we had approved long before we had any discussion about the town planner. And so things were rearranged, and now we're just filling the positions that should have been filled all along. We utilized some of the funds to, when we rearranged, because budgets were extremely tight, that line item ended up getting dropped down, and we knew it was going to be a year before we could refund that and bring on a town planner. And that's what we did. And I'm looking forward to meeting the new town planner, and I hope they do a great job. Yes, Ed?
Follow-up. I think at the time that it was eliminated or cut back, it was the town administrator indicated that between her and her assistant, they could handle the job. And so obviously, they've been handling it for a time, and now gone out getting somebody. I just think it's a duplication. If we have two people doing the job now, why do we need another full-time person? I mean, let's give the taxpayers a little break here. Keep adding town employees, that's expensive, and I think that I can't vote in favor of this. I think we can do a better job. Keep it with the town administrator and her assistant handling the job of the town planner.
Can I
Go ahead.
I just have a
Steve.
question. This is an approved position in the town budget that was approved at town meeting, correct?
Correct,
And that is in addition to the executive coordinator, which is also part of the town budget.
correct.
Okay, I don't have any other questions.
Well, he's correct. It is in the town budget.
Mr. Chairman?
But what is wrong with,
No,
what is
should not.
wrong with cutting in the budget? You give the taxpayers a break. They keep getting hammered for everything. And, you know, if we can save them a couple pennies on their tax bill, I think it's worth it. We can't keep adding staff.
Duly noted.
I'd like to make a comment. I think the idea of having the town administrator also be the town planner is not sustainable. I think it's very risky. She could leave tomorrow, and good luck finding an administrator and planner for the bargain price of what we're getting Rebecca for. Rebecca, please don't leave tomorrow. And I think we put ourselves in a very bad situation by piling all of that on one person. Jonathan Sullivan seems extremely qualified, and we are getting him for a bargain, if that's the cost that it is. And it sounds to me like he would be a true asset to the town. A planner position is needed. I fully trust our town administrator and what she says that we need. And I'm not in favor of overloading her anymore if we have a way to support her with another position that has already been approved at town meeting.
Good. So do we have a motion and do we have a second already?
I thought we did.
Yes. Yep,
we did.
Yes, yes. I just want to make sure that for the people that do watch the show, this show, you know, there was never any intention of eliminating the town planner job once it was created. It was created on the strong recommendation from the planning board chairman, who is a very, very frugal person. And it was brought in, and immediately we saw amazing results. And I think the biggest thing that this town faces right now, in many ways, is in the planning area, in development, in things that are happening, and we don't catch them in time, and then we don't react to it in time, and now we're chasing after it. And to be more proactive, you have to have somebody in that position. And that we have a much smaller staff than any town around us. We run on one fire chief, 2 full-time firefighters, and a lot of volunteer firefighters. We don't waste any money in this town, and we've brought this town a balanced budget with no overrides 2 years in a row, while towns around us have been floating overrides. Georgetown passed an enormous override, and I'm sure it's going to be tough on their taxpayers. And not me, I mean more our staff in this town, our departments, have worked diligently to keep in their budgets and to deliver the best services that they can. And I think it shows. We've seen the improvements in town. So let's not go back to the old way of, we don't need that person, we don't need this. Let's take a look at what is happening in town and make sure that we can meet that need. We're an executive board, we're not an administrative board. We are not here to make the day-to-day decisions, and we're not qualified to make them. Okay? So the budget has been coming in without overrides, and departments have been staying within their budgets for the most part. We had very few transfers this year. That's fantastic. Okay, so, yeah. I don't know where the misinformation comes from sometimes. I wonder if I'm at the same meeting as some people, but we never eliminated that position. Let's vote.
Yes, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 nay.
And I did notice that I made an error in the packet. The chief had also requested 2 appointments for a part-time
Yep.
officer and a part-time dispatcher. I did not put them on the agenda. I will add those to the agenda for the next meeting, but as you can see, he does a very similar thing for the other appointments, and he did send one in for both Captain Riley and Lieutenant Petroni. So my apologies for the error.
No worries. I think we all agree that Chief Gillen is quite capable of making strong and good decisions. Next, we have the approval of the minutes.
Yes, I just saw them. Which ones? April 1st? The one, April 2nd?
April 7th,
Yep.
May 27th, and May 12th.
Okay, so I was at that
April
one.
7th, Steve was not here yet.
Correct.
Okay, so why don't I do that one? I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for Monday, April 7th, 2025.
I'll second that.
Motion and second, any further discussion? All in favor?
I'll abstain.
4 in favor, 1 abstention.
And I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for Monday, May 12th, 2025.
I'll second that.
And everyone was present.
Motion and a second, any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? And then May 27th?
Yes, and I was at that. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for Tuesday, May 27th, 2025.
I'll second that.
Message and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Do we have any old or unfinished business? Other items not reasonably anticipated at the time of posting?
Yes.
Go ahead, Ed.
We had appointments here from the police department for a part-time officer, part-time dispatcher. I don't see it on the agenda, but maybe we could deal with that under not not anticipated. It looks like it might have been submitted late.
Rebecca just explained that. Am I wrong?
No, she didn't. It'll be on the next.
Yeah, I think it'll be safe to just put it on the next agenda so we don't not have it posted and prevent people from coming in and making a comment. Not that anybody's going to, but I think it'll be fine, and I think they can operate as they have been, without any interference.
Well, I think if they've been if they're going to be working, it says effective July 7th, which is today, we should vote them in so that they can be, they got to be sworn in at some point. Dispatcher, part-time police officer, in order to carry on their duties.
All right, I think we do it, and then we'll put it on the next agenda and affirm it. That way there, we can get the motion, they approve it, the appointment to the officers so they can work without any interruption. And then if we post it, reaffirm it next meeting, that should avoid any conflict with our open meeting laws.
So we're saying that it was not anticipated that we didn't get it onto the agenda, but we did have it in the packet.
Yeah, it was a mistake, it was an oversight.
Yeah, it was
but
that's, well, we don't anticipate all mistakes,
Yeah,
yeah.
it still needs to be put as an agenda item, just so the public can see it.
Okay.
See as people, and they may have objections.
Are we
So
going to
they have an
vote it here?
opportunity. Yeah, I think so. I think we should vote it and then also repost it. And that way there, if anybody comes in with an objection, we can revisit it at that time.
Is there a time frame under which they can work before we have to do the appointment, or does it have to come?
I'm not sure when they're expected to start work.
And since we don't meet for the next 2 weeks, it'd probably just be beneficial.
Yep.
So I think that'll be fine. So do I have a motion, Ed?
I'll make a motion that we appoint, wrong glasses. That we appoint Robert Hoffman of Groveland as a part-time police officer, and John May of Epping, New Hampshire as a part-time dispatcher, effective July 7th, 2025.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? None? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Unanimous. Just make sure it's on the next agenda, and we'll be, I think that'll just cover our ass, and I think that's important. Town administrator time?
So I have a couple of updates for the Salem Street Dam. The emergency certification was issued by the Conservation Commission, and the application for such is included as part of your correspondence. It also contains approval from the National Heritage for us to move forward, and it does provide some conditions which you can read. It was signed on July 2nd, so we have 30 days from July 2nd to get the work completed. So the highway crew has begun site preparations, and the lining company is scheduled to set up equipment on Wednesday and install the liner on Thursday, weather permitting. The highway superintendent personally hand-delivered notices to abutters to inform them of the upcoming work. So I will be sending out updates to the board to let you know if that timeline does change. It does look like there is some rain in the forecast, so unfortunately, we will be combating that, but the work itself shouldn't take that long. So hopefully, once we can get a dry spell, we can get that completed. For the YMCA summer camp update, I just wanted to let you know that everything seems to be going very well so far. The YMCA reported that over 100 families have enrolled, and at least 5 returning counselors are on staff. So once the season concludes, we expect to have a more detailed update to share with the board. Then to let the board know that for the Board of Assessors, as you know, we had gone through the process of maybe potentially moving toward an appointed board, and that, while it passed at annual town meeting, did not pass the ballot, so we still have an elected board. We have one elected member, Bill Dark. The second member who was elected, Dana Moody, they had moved out of town. And the third, Justin Hart, did not meet the minimum requirements that's required for the assessor, so he was disqualified. So as you recall, we did have a member from the public volunteer, Melissa Baker, She's been great, and she definitely hit the ground running, and she was appointed by the board, and she took the necessary modules to bring us back into compliance. The reason why that's very important is because for a little while, we were not able to set our tax rate, and if we can't do that, we cannot operate. So we are very grateful that she was able to do that, and hopefully we'll be able to recruit and decide whether or not we want to move forward with an appointed board again at the upcoming annual town meeting and election. For website, I know I've updated you in our bi-weekly type roundups, but it is live now. We do still have a lot of work that we need to do to make sure that the content is all there. It was a little rushed in trying to get everything situated, so we appreciate everyone's patience, but we've already started to see a lot of improvement in terms of functionality on our end. So uploading documents, making those changes, being able to make changes on the homepage and icons and little things here and there. So it's proven to be a fruitful effort, and we're just asking for a little bit more patience while we try and get everything situated. For staff updates, we are going to be seeing a new employee on July 8th, Tanya Rowland, who will be the new program coordinator in the Council on Aging office. As you'll recall, under the current bylaw, the Council on Aging has the ability to appoint their own staff, so that is why that is not on your agenda. Then also to note that there has been some office reorganizations with the Council on Aging. So Nisha, the Assistant Director, she was in the main office with Alyssa, the Director, but now she's moved into the Outreach office. And so Tanya and the van drivers will be with Alyssa in the larger office in the corner. So if you see those changes, those are what happened. And then also to note and congratulate Ellen Petrillo, our town accountant, who has completed the Massachusetts Certified Public Purchasing Official classes. So it's nice to have somebody else here in town who will have the same skill set in terms of procurement. I am currently the only staff that has that certification, so having that extra set of eyes and the ability to run things back and forth will be very beneficial. For project requests and residential concerns, Select Board Member Castronellis had asked for a Valley's Group fact sheet, so I'm in the process of putting that together, and this document will be utilized to engage the neighborhood and the community effort to push this forward. I did want to provide an update on the request for a speed limit at Center Street and Seven Star. Looking at the my map and taking a look at the density requirements for thickly settled, it looks like they are less than 200 feet apart, so therefore by default it is thickly settled, and therefore we don't need to go through a study and a process other than having the select board actually approve the placement of the sign. Without the select board approving the sign, we don't have the ability, being the police officers, to enforce that. So I'm just getting confirmation from the police chief and also the resident to make sure that they just wanted a speed sign, they didn't want that reduced. Because if they do want the speed reduced from what we believe it to be at 30, then that would require a study, as Select Member Watson had pointed out at the last meeting. Then also, I just wanted to let the board know, the health agent resigned effective June 21st, and we have been in contact with BME Strategies, who is helping to facilitate the IMA for the collaborative with the Merrimack Valley Public Health Alliance.
Yeah.
The select board had signed on to that agreement, I believe last year now in the fall, and so they provide shared services. So we do have somebody who's assisting with our restaurants and some of our other health-related needs, but we do not have somebody who is helping with our registered sanitarian, so for our perk test for septics. So I did reach out to them today to see whether or not they would be able to help assist us with that a little further. I did have a resident come in and share that they were told that because there is no health agent, they cannot move forward with a perk test, which means they can't pull a building permit, which means that their entire building and the process is on hold. We have advertised the health agent position. I did get approval from the Board of Health Chair to advertise the position. We have not received one application. So I am advocating to be able to work with the Board of Health to kind of see whether or not there's a better way of going about this position, whether or not there's a regional effort, whether or not we combine the position and make it more attractive in terms of a salary and wage component. just to make sure that that office is fully staffed and we do have somebody there with the capability. So hopefully, we can have that conversation and we can see what happens next. But just so you know, there are some residents who are concerned because if they do try and go pull a building permit, they will not be able to get to the next step without that sign off from the Board of Health. For field use and property use special event permits, as you noted in the last email, we had the July 1st, which was moved to July 2nd fireworks, but otherwise no other permits had been issued. Important upcoming dates, tomorrow is the planning board meeting and the library board of trustees, and then the Conservation Commission is meeting on the 9th. For grants, the Pines Recreation Area and Shanahan access improvements, more community preservation, but grant-oriented. You'll note that all of the paving has been completed at both of the sites. The contractor was out there today putting up the railing over at the Pines. We are still waiting for the pavement markings, so we're trying to get a better understanding of when they'll be in to do that. For the Community Compact IT Strategy Plan update, I did meet with the consultant today to review the draft report, and I'm very happy with what they had provided, and we'll have the final report to share with the Select Board at the next meeting. But I did provide some of the key project recommendations in the memo for your review prior to releasing that information. For procurement, there's no updates. For technical review conferences, there's no update. And then I provided the list of meetings, seminars, and webinars that I attended the last 2 weeks. So I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you have in particular to those.
Does anybody have any questions for Rebecca?
Negative.
I do not.
How do you get it all done? No, I just-
Yeah,
You sleep.
it's a well-informed,
even Dan
Memo.
McDonald used to say, just do less.
tell because nobody had any questions.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So with that, I think, Select Board time and reports. Start with Kathy.
Okay, so, meeting with the Trash and Recycling Committee on the 16th, I believe, and after that, we're hoping to get a slot on the agenda for part 1 of our 3-part presentation, bringing everything together that we've been studying and the surveys and all that data, kind of creating the entire picture of what are the choices facing the town. And we thought to do it in 3 parts to try and give it in chunks and give you time to think about it, rather than try and do a blitz and do it all in one meeting. It's a lot of information. And as Rebecca said, I'm going to try and use some of this summertime to get neighborhood and even people outside the neighborhood more informed on the Valley Screw situation, because I know that our town officials, and I know Bill Dunn worked on it a lot, I know Rebecca works on it a lot, I know Mike Dempsey was on the television What's Up talking about it, but I feel like with all the overgrowth over there now, it's almost like you forget it's there. So I started to do some research about when it happened, because it happened just before I got into town. And it's pretty egregious that it wasn't an accidental spill. It was intentional dumping of really, really bad chemicals from their products into the ground, into a tank that leaked, shutting down both of the town wells so that the town had to go outside for water. And people that lived in the town at that time and drank the water before this was found out, there was never a study done to find out, what was the impact. I'm sure there was impact. The owner, I guess, went bankrupt, and that created the situation we're in now, where the place can't be sold by the owner, and we can't seem to take control of it, and yet there's good possibility that not only is it dangerous because it's crumbling, but because there was never a study done of the inside of that building, of the dirt floor inside. Good possibility that that's an area that should be secured and made safe. So maybe bring up public awareness, because we don't want another incident from this site to happen. With the roof caving in and water getting in, anything that's inside that building is going to get out and into the ground. And the well that was closed was reopened. One of them wasn't, and one was. And I guess we got a second well then over by the cemetery, and that's how we've been running since then. It's a tough story. It's something that I thought if people got a little more informed and knew who to contact, maybe at the EPA or whatever, to start to raise concern. I know people don't want this in their town. I know they want it taken care of, but it just seems like nowadays, if you don't have the squeaky wheel, if you don't make some noise, you don't get very far. So I'm going to adopt the points of making some noise. So anybody that's listening that has information or wants to help out, let me know. That's all.
Awesome. Becky?
Yeah, I actually have a few things. First, I want to give a thank you for the wildlife crossing sign on Salem Street right before the dam. I think was it you, Arthur, joint effort? So thank you, appreciate it. It's been a little calmer. Also, the construction things to make it so people slow down. Another point, so Senator Tarr made mention of this in response to the federal funding cuts. You know, our governor is delaying payment on earmarked funds for local projects in the budget totaling approximately $125 million until later in the year when more is understood about their affordability. We also have Administration and Finance Secretary make a comment. This budget also takes proactive steps to ensure Massachusetts is prepared to confront an uncertain economic future. When looking into this, Manchester by the Sea has a potential loss of more than $4.48 million in federal funds associated with the hazard mitigation grant from FEMA to help fund the replacement of a bridge and remove a collapsing culvert. In Amherst, a potential loss of more than $380,000, a grant from the EPA. So Rebecca, as of right now, are there any funding or projects that you know of that are affected by these federal cuts from our current administration?
Not currently. We
Okay.
do have monies that were set aside for the water infrastructure improvements that we are rolling into the larger project of the water treatment facility. And those funds were secured by Congressman Moulton
Okay.
a few years back. So I'm not sure if because of when it was approved, but they have not been impacted as of date. And as you'll recall, the building commissioner did receive a grant, the BRIC grant, the building infrastructure bill that came through from the federal government, and we received notification that while many of the projects were, funding was taken away, our project was funded, and that was for the plotter and the building code books. So
Okay.
we have not seen a direct impact. I do know that, again, the fire department and the police department, they do a lot of federal funding. And as you stated, the EPA, with the water treatment facility, that's something that the town is pursuing. It's been going through the state drinking water revolving fund, but that also receives federal funding.
Right.
So it could potentially be an issue later on, but right now, we have not.
Okay. I'll probably ask you a few times on this as we go through, because I know there's a lot of unknowns, and,
Of course.
you know, when the water stops at the top, you know, we don't get as much. The state has to make some tough decisions. My third comment was just about this promoting a business-friendly town, and I was wondering, for the marijuana establishments bylaw that was voted in 2019 that prohibited anything beyond medical marijuana. I remember the Economic Development Committee having this topic on their agenda, and I was curious of any progress on that.
We did have it on the agenda for the annual town meeting for 2025, but because of all of the other zoning amendments that we had in place, in addition to the MBTA zoning and some of the other general warrant articles, we decided to hold, but it is still a conversation, and we are scheduled to meet in the next few weeks for the Economic Development Council, committee, I think it's in August. I'll definitely bring this back up to the committee to see whether or not they're willing to pursue this further. I do recall that they did bring it to the planning board for discussion as well, so it was something that the planning board was also interested in seeing what that would look like.
Okay. Yeah, I know now it's a little late. They're not offering all the funds that they were before. It's a big market. I just for us to be a business-friendly town, I just would like to get rid of some of the fine print on that and be a little bit more open-minded to what kind of businesses that could bring in revenue and help our taxpayers. That's all I have. Thank you.
I think it might be beneficial to put that on the next agenda for discussion, so we can invite the public in and maybe get some of their input as well. Ed, you got anything?
No, I don't.
Steve?
Just a question. At our last meeting, we had talked about opening up to the public, finding a member for the Whittier Building Committee. Have we had any interest in that, or have we put that out there?
So we did send out a media flyer on our social media pages. We only received 2 interested candidates, so we were gonna send out another blast and then bring that before the board. I believe that the next meeting with the Whittier Working Group is this week on Wednesday, so we'll have a better understanding of what the timeline is for that as well.
Perfect.
And they also plan on providing the enrollment per town, along with the people that are on the waiting list.
Great.
So we should have all that information for our next meeting. So that will be great. I know Alyssa wanted me to share this with everybody. There's ladies' tea at the Groveland Congregational Church, Thursday, July 17th. Doors open at 1:30, service at 2, $25 per guest. The program is hosted by the Friends of Groveland Council on Aging. It's how they raise a lot of their money, and I think it's important for them to be able to do so. Come enjoy a variety of scones, bread, finger sandwiches, hors d'oeuvres, desserts, and hot teas in an air-conditioned comfort, which everybody needs this week here, probably in July 17th as well. You listen to some classical guitar music performed by Scott Olette. Seating is limited, advance registration is required, admission at the door will not be available. So make sure you contact them ahead of time. And there's some more information here, which will be posted on our website, I assume, as well as theirs. Rebecca?
Yes.
Yes. So you can go to our website, and you can always reach out to any one of us at the board that can help direct you to the information you need.
And it's probably on the bulletin board.
And I'm sure that it's on the bulletin board out
At the
front.
tack out. Just one tack.
All right, with that, I think we can move on to correspondence, which on the agenda, we have correspondence for information from Whittier Regional Vocational Technical High School Career Technical Initiative Grant, which was in the sum of $931,000, which Whittier will be utilizing these funds to provide training and placement services to prepare underemployed individuals in the following pathways: welding, advanced manufacturing, carpentry, electrical, plumbing, culinary arts, marine technology, construction labor, and auto body. They have a list of partners if anybody's interested in seeing. And I think it's a great, it shows the efforts that the governor and the state is pushing to advance our technical schools. So I'm looking forward to that as well. I think that's it. With that, I think our next regular scheduled meeting is Monday, June 21st at 6:30, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
July 20.
Monday, July 21st,
Okay.
2025, 6:30.
A motion to adjourn at 8:46.
Second.
Second? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much.